In the provincial town of Al-Harbiya, the most daunting obstacle for any thief wasn't the heavy gates of Haji Rustam Ali's palace. The real security resided in Rustam's own ironclad psyche, a mind dedicated entirely to the preservation of his massive fortune. Rustam's wealth was legendary, matched only by his paralyzing paranoia. He famously paid his clerk in stale bread and bitter insults, viewing every cent spent as a personal wound. He spent his nights pacing, counting his gold coins 3 times before sunrise to ensure not a single piece had vanished into the shadows. This level of hypervigilance created a specific cognitive vulnerability. Because Rustam's defensive focus was projected outward toward every external threat he could imagine, a massive psychological blind spot formed directly beneath him. 2 beggars named Ramzan and Shaukat watched the merchant from the shadows of the old city walls. They lived in rags, but they possessed a profound understanding of how a man's own habits can be turned against him. They realized that a traditional burglary was impossible. Instead, they planned to use Rustam's own hypervigilance to bypass his walls entirely, turning his internal fears into the mechanism of his own defeat. When a target has fortified their physical world against every possible intrusion, the only path left is to attack the one thing they value more than their safety, their greed. The beggars began by staging a loud, frantic argument just outside Rustam's gate at sundown. They shouted over the details of a Suleimani diamond, a mythical stone allegedly buried deep beneath the merchant's own courtyard. This maneuver utilized information asymmetry. A direct pitch would trigger Rustam's skepticism immediately, but by overhearing a secret, he felt he gained an advantage. People trust stolen information far more than what they are given. Rustam listened from behind the gate, enthralled. The beggars claimed this diamond breathed only at night and possessed the power to transform ordinary iron into pure gold with a single touch. To pull the diamond from the earth, the beggars insisted on a specific, difficult ritual. It required the touch of those who had never profited from trade, expensive silk wraps, 2 large brass plates, and a mountain of gold coins to serve as a magnetic lure for the stone's energy. These conditions served a dual purpose. By claiming the diamond rejected merchants, they ensured Rustam couldn't try to dig it up himself. Simultaneously, the promise of infinite gold overrode his usual instinct to protect the coins he already possessed. By creating a time-sensitive, exclusive ritual, the beggars successfully maneuvered a hyper-paranoid man into willingly funding his own robbery. At midnight, the courtyard was transformed. Rustam, blinded by the prospect of the diamond, brought out 2 brass plates, heaped with his gold coins, and draped the 2 beggars in expensive silk as they sat in the center of the dark estate. The beggars began a rhythmic, haunting chant. They shook and gasped, mimicking the terror of men witnessing a supernatural event, making it appear as though the very ground was beginning to churn. Suddenly, Ramzan screamed that the diamond was sensing a stench of greed. He warned Rustam that if his presence offended the stone, it would sink forever, turning every coin in the courtyard into coal. To save his fortune, Rustam was told he must prove his purity. The beggars ordered him to face the gate, close his eyes, and count to 100 without looking back, a test to appease the diamond's wrath. As Rustam stood with his back turned, counting loudly to protect his wealth, the beggars moved with silent precision. They wrapped the brass plates in their old rags to muffle the sound, and slipped out through a window they had prearranged for their escape. Rustam believed he was maintaining his usual oversight of a critical transaction. In reality, he was the one providing the cover for the beggars to walk away with his life savings. When Rustam reached 100 and opened his eyes, he found himself alone in the courtyard. There was no diamond, no beggars, and no gold. On the ground where the gold had sat, a charcoal note thanked him for the silk clothes and the fine meal they had eaten earlier. It informed him that while the Suleimani diamond was a fiction, his greed had been very real. Ramzan and Shaukat did not hoard the gold. They traveled to a distant city and established a kitchen and an orphanage, living simple lives while redistributing the merchant's wealth to the very people he had ignored for decades. The event fundamentally altered Rustam's behavior, though not out of kindness. Terrified of being outsmarted by the poor again, he began compulsively giving alms to every beggar he saw, not out of charity, but to prevent any future diamonds from tempting him into ruin. Rustam learned that a vault is only as secure as the mind guarding it. When that mind is clouded by its own desires, even the most fortified palace becomes a gilded trap.